Right. So start.
Hello and welcome. You are watching the Policy Times. Policy Times is world's first policy and development media. We have been consistently working and bringing you to the latest updates on various policy subjects. Now, budget is a very big exercise of the country. Every year, the just like any corporate, they assess their last year's performance and make a plan for the next year. That is what, in short, we call a budget. It's basically a financial statement of the country and the projection expenditure for the next or plan for the next year. Now, before the budget and economics, before the budget, actually the government presents the economic survey. So that economic survey highlights the performance of the economy the previous year. So today is the day when the finance minister presented this economic survey, and to kickstart the budget session, the objective and just to outline what the finance minister said, we will talk about that. That what does the current economic survey indicate? What are the good things? What are the cautious things? Then we will go to the budget. The budget will be presented tomorrow by the finance minister. And what does all what do we expect from it? What are the areas where the government will focus, and what are the areas government should focus? And then tomorrow again we will meet in at the same time in the evening at 6 p.m. to discuss. Today we will discuss about our expectations from the budget. Tomorrow we will discuss about the actual delivery of the budget, and how do we take that? How do we see the budget meeting the people's expectation? To start today's session, I am so happy to welcome some of our eminent speakers. I welcome Mr. Shahryar Mansoor, who is the risk manager at Aramco. Aramco, we all know, one of the leading global petrochemical conglomerates of the world. We have Mr. Ram Narayan, Director and Vice President of Strategic Market and Business Development, Vedanta Group. We have Professor Ujjwal K. Chaudhary, who is the Strategic Advisor and Professor at Devil Hills University. And we have a very dynamic personality from the space of business, especially a mentor for the MSMEs, K.E. Raghunath, who is a social entrepreneur and also national chairman of the Association of Indian Entrepreneurs, and also he is associated with many groups. From the startup fraternity, we have a startup coach, Dr. Prakash Sharma, who is also the head of Mission P Combinator head. And also from the sustainability sector, we have Mr. Paras Guptaji, who is the head of APR Sustainability and Marketing from GEM Enviro. In addition to it, we have some eminent personalities whom I'll introduce gradually when we start the session. Now, just to start our discussion, as I briefed that the Honorable Finance Minister has presented the economic survey highlights of 2023. Some of the major highlights are normally is the GDP growth. The country has been witnessing, has witnessed a robust and decent GDP growth with balanced and controlled inflation. There is increase in GDP tax collection, whether it is GST or any other forms of tax. There is decent rise in private consumption, and so is in capital expenditure and many other. So the healthcare sector's contribution or the investment to the healthcare sector has gone up. The contribution to education sector, agriculture sector has also witnessed sizable growth. Then we have also seen that the corporates have shown a decent profits or balance sheet or decent statements or financial situation in their balance sheets or profit and loss accounts. Overall, that has been the picture. The stable government has given a little more robust picture of the macroeconomic inflation. We will discuss, I'm not mentioning the facts because when we go to the question answer thing, Then I will mention the facts and data exactly. Now, to welcome and start the session, I will first invite Mr. K.E. Raghunathan to give his comments on the Economic Survey 2023. Kindly unmute yourselves.
Hi to everyone. I hope the smile remains the same when we after the budget tomorrow morning. I wish. As Akram mentioned, my life is devoted for the cause of MSMEs. I've been a businessman, entrepreneur, first generation entrepreneur for 37 years. We all know that this is the fifth budget. We all know that there are 400 days more for the election. And we also know that the present government is more active when the election is around the corner, whether at a district level or at a state level or at a central level. And they are masters of winning it back. So I wish that tomorrow's budget, there is a debate whether it will be a popularistic budget or it will be an economy budget. I wish it is going to be a combined budget. There are two things which we have missed out in the last 5 years. One is the word called MSME, which has become a pet word to use by everybody. And the more they use, the less they do. They prove many times that the preachers don't practice. They talk about how an MSME is a foundation, and the foundations are always invisible. Unfortunately, in this country, the small and micro enterprises are not mostly in the radar of the government. They are called informal employers, and they provide informal employment. They are very informal in nature, but they constitute close to about 25 crores of people, both employer and employees together. We estimate the small and micro enterprises to be around 11 crores, thanks to the reclassification where any Tom, Dick and Harry, if you are not a corporate, you are called as a MSME today. There are about 17 to 18 crores of people who are employed by them. This government needs to address their needs today. They have enough address so far on long-term Amrit Kals, Atmanirbhar, slogan-based campaigns. The last one being the PLI's campaign. I have been in solar space for 37 years. I know how a subsidy works. And I know how you slog to get the cities in hand. I wish the PLI scheme is eased out so that the money is started rolling into the hands of the people. It hasn't yet. It hasn't yet. Not even a 1 rupee has gone out of the hands of the government into the hands of the entrepreneur. It is all in the planning stage. It's all in the book stage. It's all book adjustment at the moment, estimates. This budget, I expect that we will address the unemployment crisis. We will address the micro, small entrepreneur needs. We have said in the last year that if we encourage, if we support, if we build the corporate sector, automatically they will look after the MSMEs, everybody will grow. It has proved to some extent it is not so. It has proved to some extent, I mean the some extent based on the facts, the outstanding payments from the corporates falling into the hands of the micro and small entrepreneurs is growing. The government came out with a redressal system, but that redressal system is not applicable for micro entrepreneurs. Someone who has supplied some materials worth few lakhs to a builder, and builder has either wound up or not wanting to pay, this man has no wherewithal to go and fight with him. Neither he can go through the legal means, nor he can go and approach, talk, and take it forward. they are voiceless and they form a larger chunk of it. The economic survey which is presented is almost like the governor's speech during an assembly session. It's nothing else but a jargons used to praise the government, praise the performance, praise everything is all right, and all is fine, kind of a statement. But my friends, those on the panel with me who are very distinguished than me and the listeners of this conversation, the data in the last 1 year shows what are the things that went high in this country. The inflation went high. The cost of living went high. A year back, a family earning about 15,000 rupees was able to live to an extent comfortably. That 15,000 has gone up to 22,000. But the income has come down from 15 to 12, or sometimes even no jobs. How will they match? The unemployment went high. The entrepreneur suicide went high. The MSMEs closures went high. Nearly 30 to 35% have wound up. The outstanding payments payable to MSME has gone up. Somebody estimates it to be around 7.5 lakh crores. The NPAs went high, but the recovery was much higher because you need to either write off or written off because most of the loans to the MSMEs are more than 100% secure. So the recoveries were much faster because of the Surface Act. Open the newspaper today, you will find only advertisement of auction sale notices. And you recover interest versus penal interest and including the advertisement interest from the property sale. And if there is anything left out, the government will come and take it away as a capital gains. And further, what is left out is probably the tears in the eyes of the entrepreneur. The imports or their deficit went high. The credit balance went high. The exchange rate went high. Cotton and the steel prices went skyrocketing. The litigations went high. The MTech graduate or masters applying for a few jobs have gone up. The students going out of the country for education has gone up. The crime and unproductive working days have gone up. Somewhere or other, there is a strike, there is a religious activity, there is a bombing activity. It all exists. I live in Chennai. I know the number of days write off close to almost about 20 to 25 days on account of this. Tax revenue from the poor has gone up. The statistics say, right, 70% of the GST collections are coming from the bottom 10% of the people. So what went low? The freshers getting the right jobs. Today, there is no house in this country which will not have a delivery boy coming. Either an Amazon delivery or a Swiggy delivery or a Zomato delivery. There is no person in this world who would not have experienced traveling in a Uber or a gig worker owned enterprise. Ask them what their qualification. They would have been minimum of engineers, if not the masters or PhDs. Where have we reduced the system on education, system on startups? We talk about startups. I'm sure one of the panelists will talk about it much more than me, but I know that the statistics say 82,000 startups in this country in the last 5 years. Is that really an achievement? In my opinion, for a country with 140 billion population, this is not an achievement of producing 85,000 startups. Now we talk about 100 plus unicorns. You and I know how a balloon is blown into the air with it. What's happening to Adani is well-known factors. So where are we leading to? And why are we not able to address it? Or why are we not seeing it in proper perspectives? I tried looking into the last year budget. Where does a rupee comes from? It comes 35% of the rupee comes from a borrowing and other liability. GST is 16%, income tax is 15%, corporation tax is 15%, union excise duty is 7%, customs is 5%, non-tax revenue is 5%, non-debt capital receipts is 2%. Where does it go? Yeah, rupee. The interest payment, it goes 20%. The state share of taxes and duties is 17%. Central sector scheme is 15%. Finance commission and other transfers are 10%. Centrally sponsored scheme, 9%. Other expenditure, 9%. Defense is 8%. Subsidies are 8%. Pension is 4%. What are you left with for others? So playing politics is what is left over.
Thank you.
And that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. I think I lost you in last 5 seconds. But wonderful. I think I was not willing to stop you because you were sharing some wonderful points and data also. But my request would be to keep a very short time limit so that we can cover all speakers and then we can come back to you. Yeah, your audio, I think, has some issues. I'll come back to now Mr. Ram Narayan, sir, because we were talking about the highlights of the economic survey. So I did not mention. So may I request Ram, sir, to give some highlights of the survey? You have quickly had a glance of, and then we go into the budget.
Yeah, thanks, Akram. Anyway, first of all, very much thankful to this enlightened panel. So I heard Mr. Ranganathan, I think very valid points, but I'm a free market capitalist, so therefore maybe I'll try to tend to be more on the positive side. And since I work in the corporate, so I'll tend to be more on the positive side. Okay, first of all, I think let's look at the global context right now. Last year, we all know what has happened. I won't spend much time on that. But there are some headwinds. I don't know whether it's really, I don't know if it's really going to happen. First thing is, today morning, IMF has increased the global GDP forecast by 0.2%. That's point number one. And the second major thing that everybody is looking forward to, in fact, China opening up. So China's come back from the markets yesterday. So therefore, China opening up, which is going to give a push to the global economy, which in turn will have its ripple effects on the global overall economy, including India also. And India has been a sweet spot across the global economy. So therefore, today, if you look at the economic survey, we've taken real GDP growth 6.8%. And on top of that, a nominal GDP growth of 11%, if I get my numbers right. So that points out to a really very optimistic outlook that the government is prepared to have a look at. Now, let me just take it down to three different areas of the economy: services, manufacturing, and third thing is agriculture. So therefore, services especially, slightly hit over the last few months, but still then I think with the global economy again moving up, I think there's a lot of optimism in the market. Manufacturing is what the government is focusing on. Two things which the government has focused on is one is of course different schemes which Mr. Raghunathan said, including PLI. And second thing is what will be there'll be a little bit more confidence in the private sector, especially to invest more, and so which can really push up the manufacture, give a boost to the manufacturing also. That's point number two. And point number three is the government's capex also look pretty strong. So therefore, that is again expected to give us whole host of support to the entire sector. The third point, which I see, look at it when I look at the economic survey, is these more optimism that is seen in the agricultural sector. So agricultural sector, it was in the dumps for some time. Dumps is a strong word to use, but it was down for some time, mainly because of after effects of COVID and whatever happened. But again, if you look at the outlook that is given by the FMCG companies, especially regarding the rural outlook, so therefore that looks to be coming better off. So all the more, if you look at the fundamentals of the three major sectors of the economy, there looks to be some strength in what the economic survey says. So I hope that is what is reflected in the budget tomorrow also. The second point, which I see, if you look at the fiscal deficit, of course, the fiscal deficit around 6.5% plus. And I think this year they're going to end up at 6.7%. But despite the fact there's a last full budget before the election, so you can expect some populisms. But still, then all the pointers that come out is the government might still not go down hard on the fiscal deficit. So therefore, fiscal deficit might be at 6.5% of the GDP. But that portends that the government will be inclined to spend more on the real economy rather than on the populism. So that's something which I really expect. Hopefully, we won't see more announcements on the populist part of it, but rather than the real economy part of it. That is point number three. And point number four is if you look at some of the other indicators, if you look at the banks' NPAs, the NPAs are certainly coming down. So hopefully the banks will be in a better position to lend right now. That is point number 3. And then another point is looking at the exports. Exports has been pretty robust, despite the fact that the current offer deficit might be on the higher side. Exports have been robust and is expected to continue so. And my major confidence comes from the fact that a good part of the export from India is petroleum and petroleum product exports. Now, with the economy, with the global commodity prices still expected to be pretty firm, so a global oil price still expected pretty firm. So I expect these numbers to remain firm because of it. The exports numbers will be met as what we can see in the what you can see in the economic survey as well as the outlook. Now, these are some of the major factors plus general economic, the mood is pretty positive. Now, let me come to what can be the downswings to the entire budget making. The one thing is commodity prices. I work in the field of commodities. I've been here for the last 25 years. So I don't expect the commodity prices to come down this year, especially oil. The reason being that, there is a supply shortage, especially in oil. When I say supply shortage, there's a tight supply of oil. So therefore, and also with the China opening up, we might see the oil prices harden up actually. So that's going to put a big pressure on the current account deficit, which in turn can affect the rupee as well. So therefore, that's one of the downsides which I see. And the second downside, which I hope does not happen, is if the government resorts to any kind of populism, mainly because elections are on the corner. There are 13 state elections or 11 state elections are on the corner. So because of it, there might be some populist measures that might come up. So therefore, these are two things which I can see that can be the dampeners to the entire budget making process. Now, a few points which Mr. Ranganathan alluded to, which I may also wish to touch upon is, you spoke about the exchange rate. Now, exchange rate, to some extent, I believe, is also driven by what is happening externally, especially interest rate hikes that happened across the world. And I think if you look at all the other emerging economies, so therefore, I think the rupee has done reasonably well. So therefore, I won't be very much perturbed about that. The only thing the government needs to do is keep the inflation little bit under control. Not an easy job to do. That is point number 1. And point number 2 is, I think it was alluded to cotton and steel prices are higher, but it has gone up all across the world. So therefore, commodity prices are on the upswing right now. So therefore, I don't think there's anything much that we can do about it. So these are the major points which I have to, which I think I can see from the economic survey. So to summarize it, I think yes, the governments do paint a pretty positive picture. But looking at the way the Indian economy has been sweet spot for the last, let's say, 12 months, and looking at the indicators that is coming out over the next few months, and considering the fact that this present government is on a politically strong wicket, unlike probably 10 years back or 15 years back, we saw governments on a politically sticky wicket. Because of it, they had to resort to some populist measures. This present government is not in that kind of a situation. So net, I expect a budget which is pretty practical, which will put a thrust on growth. And so net, I'm pretty positive about the budget. Of course, there are some lot of tailwinds behind it, but net, I would see, looking at the economic survey I think I feel that it might be more of a practical budget right now.
Thank you so much. So 2 clear points. Let this budget be a practical one and focus on growth, because growth will bring more business activity, more consumption, and hence more job. I'll come to our next speaker, one of the loud voices of the country and also a very prominent media academic, Professor Ujjwal K. Chaudhary, who has written hundreds and thousands of articles on different subjects. Professor Chaudhary, now there are 2 aspects. 11 states, as Sir said, will be going for elections next year or this coming fiscal. And this will be also the last budget presented by the current regime. Hence, it has to have some populist element in it. And it will naturally, our expectation is it will have some populist expectations from it, as well as it will try to recover what it has lost due to Ukraine-Russia war, due to pandemic issues, and also due to internal conflicts. How do you see and what will be your major expectations from the budget that we are going to see tomorrow?
First of all, this budget, the implications are more for the state elections, 11 elections which are in front. The national election, the impact of the result of the state elections will impact the national elections more. And there will be an interim budget even in February 2024, because the national elections are expected 2-3 months later. And going by the practice last time also, the ministry, the finance minister comes out with almost a full budget, even in the election year. So because that's more as a symbol, as a sign for what the government thinks if it gets elected. So keeping that in mind, to think that this is the budget for 24 election may not be completely right. It's more for the 23 elections. Point one. Point two, while 7% GDP growth has been talked about by the economic survey, it actually predicts 6 to 6.8% ahead. That means the confidence is lower for the next financial year. That's one. Depreciating rupee is a concern, not getting into too much of details. Labor market, the economic survey does paint some rosy picture of the labor market, but we know for almost the last 2-3 years, it is the worst employment situation of the almost 50 years. And CMI has come out year after year data on that, Council for Monitoring Indian Economy. So employability, and Mr. Ranganathan has also spoken about that. The employability situation is different. I'm talking of employment situation is not in a very strong wicket. Exports have been in growth, that's right. High commodity prices is a major concern. Another good part is clean energy transition that's happening. But on the other hand, while NPA recovery has been happening, but the recovery is also creating other challenges through insolvency and bankruptcy code, leading to actually a lot of, as has been noted earlier, entrepreneur suicides and, distress selling and all those things. So, and the political wicket, yes, last election that has happened were in 3 places. All the 3 were in BJP hands, the ruling party hands. 2 of them lost. Himachal Pradesh lost, Delhi MCD lost, and a super bumper win in Gujarat by the ruling party. I don't know how the world tells that BJP is on a riding height just because there has been some bumper success in one state. Many reasons are for that. Coming to the next budget, the last budget has an expense of 39.45 lakh crores. And to that, 4.36 lakh crores were added during the year. So we had around 44 lakh crores roughly, 44 point something, between 44 and 45 lakh crores. The focus is in the last few months, additional expenses were in fertilizer subsidy, food subsidy, rural job guarantee, and oil marketing companies. So please understand, these will remain as concern points in the new budget. You have to provide for heavy fertilizer subsidy, food subsidies, rural job guarantees, and oil, obviously. So challenges now, one, boosting demand. Because without demand, there cannot be growth in the economy at all. Job creation, obviously. Infrastructure building, that is a big challenge because state governments are not investing in a big way and private sector investment in infrastructure is very low. And food subsidies will continue, it's not a great thing to say. I don't know how do people in the government say, with 83 crores people being fed by the government over the last 3-4 years, which is 83 crores out of 135 crores, which is more than 50% of the entire population, being subsidized in food, and you call yourself a great economy? Yes, on the face, it's the fastest growing economy among the major economies. But the point is that you are subsidizing even survival of 55-56% of the population. That's the reality. The share market does not tell economy alone. We go ahead. The biggest hindrance surely is the global slowdown and the recession predicted ahead. Headwinds, yes, there could be, people are predicting end of Ukraine war, people are predicting several other things, but global slowdown and recession ahead is also on the radar of several observers, economists and all. So boost to capital spending is needed. Last year it was 7.5 lakhs crores in capital spending. It needs to go beyond, much beyond that, because capital spending will create jobs, boost to spending overall and economic survival. The private infra investments is very, very poor. So the government, even state government level is also less than 1 lakh crore. So the central government has spent 7.5 lakhs crores last time. It has to grow more if the economy has to be given a boost. Then boost to Manrega, because Manrega is the only antidote to job situation just now. So rural jobs time. So Manrega already had gone beyond the official allocation of the last year. There had to be additional investment. But the challenge is that timely spending, plugging the leakages, getting the people getting the salaries in time through the Manrega, these are challenges there. But rural job demand is far higher than the job provision at this point of time. Then PM Awas Yojana, 48,000 was spent last year. This must increase because PM Awas Yojana creates housing, jobs, and purchasing power of the rural masses. MSME support, extend emergency credit line guarantee scheme till March 2024. This has been one good one, ECLG, a good one, a good step, but it needs an extension ahead. And there have been a lot of delayed payments to the MSMEs, both by the government sector and the private sector. MSMEs survival level is very less. So timely payment is the key to the survival of MSME. And if economic revival can happen, it cannot happen from the large-scale economy, large-scale industry, but from the MSME itself. Production-linked incentive has been mentioned there, PLI. This scheme needs extension. Another good scheme needs expansion rather, for expanding Atmanirbhar Bharat to increase the domestic manufacturing. Furniture, leather, glassware, these need to come in within the PLI thing. 14 sectors are covered. We need to have more labor intensive with performance measurement, labor intensive industries where PLI has to be extended. And I will end on the 2 points, education and health. Education last time had 12% growth. I really appreciate. 1,05,000 crores was the last year's expenditure. I'm not sure of the actual expenses, but this was the allocation. But then this is less than 3%. And of the 40 lakhs crores budget. The new education policy in 2020 promised 6% of the GDP, 6% of the budget. It's not even half of that. So it needs radical expansion if it has to go close to the new education policies allocation and the dream that the policy has told. Several points of the new education policy is good. It promised about digital university last time and a push to digital education and skill development and agricultural universities. We need to know exact performance in this sector. Health is worse. 86,000 crores. No major 0.6% expansion than the previous year happened last time. So 86,000 crores is not even 2.5% of the economy, of the GDP, sorry, of the budget. And also the GDP, not even 2.5%, the public health spending. And you cannot depend on private health alone. And national digital health ecosystem was being claimed to be created last time. We need to know there. So health budget needs a push, surely above 1 lakh crores, much above 1 lakh crores. Education up to 1.5 lakhs crores perhaps. So these are focus areas in my opinion. PM Awas, Manrega, capital spending capex, MSME support, production linked incentive expansion, education and health expansion. Well, for that, a lot of money is required. Now, money cannot come only by increasing taxes, and you cannot increase taxes in the current situation if the taxes is about the lower middle class. If the taxes are at the top 10%, there is some scope, but not beyond. In fact, income tax relief is overdue for a long time now for the middle class. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Chaudhary. As always, elegant. I'll come to our three other speakers, Paresh Gupta sir, Shahryar Mansoor sir, and Dr. Sharma. Whoever would like to speak.
I think I will talk at the end because my perspective will be international perspective. I'm living outside of the country, and I will talk about that India as a country's perspective and internally the government's perspective, how to support that claim to be the best economy, growth, and all that I'll talk about towards the end. Let the other gentleman speak at the moment.
Paras
Please.
sir represents the sustainability sector. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mansoor sir. I will request Paras Gupta sir, Director of Gen Enviro, to also share. Sustainability is a very big sector for the country. And India has taken bold initiatives, policy initiatives towards building a better build sustainable development model. How do and what do you expect from this budget with regards to waste management, recycling, and sustainability?
Thanks, Akram, for introducing me. And a very good evening to all the panelists, eminent panelists. I have been hearing from all these things. So, first and foremost, these two things are there. Key, more than a populist budget, I would like to see a realistic budget, because there the Indian poster boy, Adani, is into the being question ki how the economy will go. And the second thing is ki with the our neighboring states going all the bankrupts and all these things. So how the India would fare? So we need a realistic picture of the things besides all these subsidies and all these things which are being offered. Ki how can we be safe from this all these things? When it comes to a sustainable part, second thing is now G20 is coming to India, and now major focus is on this sustainability development and all these things. So I expect to incentivize this industry to bring out some programs with that things where technology can be introduced, because we are recycling, we are doing many things in this front, but we have the lack of the technology and many other things which is derived of. So if we can bring more of the technology, more of the allocation of funds could be there, so we can see all-round development and the generation of employment, because the major employment is at the lower levels, what the people are searching. If these people are uplifted in a more another way, then we can see a really growth in the terms of many things. So we need to bring the technology, we need to expand out in many ways into this sector, which can help out in many ways to generate the GDP and improve the GDP of the country. It cannot be concentrated in the few hands only, that into the hands of 10%. But if we have to see the real growth, then we have to spread out. It should reach the lowest of the point. And the waste sector and all this are the, it touches the lowest point where the economic growth or the upper can be increased. So I will not talk too much about that because the status and points other people have. So my expectation is that with the G20 coming in and all this coming in, it is better to push up these sectors which need a much more attention and which can help you more in a robust manner. Thanks, Akram. This is only the
Thank you.
few
Wonderful
words.
point. So you want to incentivize the waste management, recycling, and sustainability sector. I'll come to Dr. Prakash Sharma. Prakash Sharma, you have been coaching, mentoring hundreds and thousands of startups. How do you see traditionally or conventionally budget address the startup issues? And how do you see this time?
See, to begin with, no, the entire startup ecosystem in India, specifically what the government tried to do was to get incubators. They funded the incubators. Okay, it would be around 8 crores to 4 crores in at state level. And they were supposed to actually invest in startups. Now, the problem with the model is that if you are going to give a 2.5 lakh rupees loan, okay, it's not also an equity. In fact, it is 2.5 lakh rupees as a grant with 2% equity, which the bodies take, okay. And then in the 2.5 lakh rupees, because that startup person who is actually struggling will put a 1.25 lakh rupees salary allocation to himself. So that leaves only 1 lakh rupee for innovation or whatever to put a minimum viable product. Means in nutshell, the startups are going to fail. So if you will ask me that who are the unicorns over here today, please understand it is the copycat model which thrives. Like if suppose we have there Uber and then over here it is Ola. So the copycat models have survived. The consumer-centric startups have survived largely because the angels and the VCs are in the valuation game. So more the valuation and more of potential exit. That is how it works. But what happens if that person becomes valued to around $100 billion also. If there is no taker, that valuation is just on paper, right? So it becomes like a paper tiger. And this is what has exactly happened just a few uh, days back, no, where one report came in and it shook the entire stock exchange market, right? So it is like an overexposure or debt. Now, under this particular circumstances, the trend in the startup ecosystem is that many of the angels have started working on outcome-based model for funding. So what we hope from the budget or even from the government is that the first thing is over declaration that we are allocating 3,000 crores of rupees for creating 1,000 startups. They have to just make a simple mathematics and divide that value, right? Means the amount invested to the number of beneficiaries. And you can make it yourself, you can count that it will be hardly around 20,000 rupees to 30,000 rupees in investments on per startup. Now, you know that even it is better to do a vada pav business, no? In case if that is what we need, then definitely micro businesses is something which someone can survive on. So the whole economics is the mathematics of startup ecosystem. Somewhere we are not able to get it right. Okay, and that is one of the reason, Akram. If you know that I started setting up a free entrepreneurship facility within all the colleges. Okay, and we got actually benchmarked by UBI Global as the emerging top challengers in the top in Asia Pacific. So one of the key takeaways in this entire journey of whatever we have seen in the last decade is one single word which Narendra Modi ji sir has mentioned very clearly is Atmanirbhar, means stop depending on anything. In case if you want to do something, you please do it yourself. If you are successful, then the world will be behind you. If you are not successful, we were best of friends at one point of time. So that is how, if you go on that particular philosophical note, a person will be happy. Now, from what is the startup expectation from this budget is that definitely they want a tax reduction, because tax reduction is something which plays a very important role. We need to understand that even if it is a 20% tax, okay, on a 20 lakh rupees kind of a turnover, it comes to 4 lakh rupees. Now that actually creates a uh, unemployment dearth. Like we have to check off the people to manage the tax. So now it is something which we have to realize that should we spend that fund on R&D, or should we have that particular tax paid and it goes to the government. See, government may be using it in some or the other purpose, but anyone who will go and Google research and development spent in India, it is the lowest. In fact, it is non-existent. Now, on one side, we say that we want to compete with China, we want to become made in India kind of nation, make in India kind of a nation. On the other side, if we are not having that money itself for R&D or innovation, or we acquire companies. This whole idea of acquisition of companies are there. Like there are a lot of large companies who acquire companies in international market. But the problem is, in each acquisition, there is a cultural mismatch fit which needs to be adjusted. Like the marriage has to be very successful, otherwise it leads to a chaos. So we found that many of the startups over here, they have done well, who have been funded by the international market. The e-commerce startups may also be curious to know what is the tax benefit they are going to get. The MAT, okay, the alternative tax, what exactly, how it is going to work. So only the tax benefit is something which the startups would be curious for. I don't think they'll be curious to know whether this government is going to fund on startups, because the Startup India, that Mudra Yojana and all, actually, to be very frank, banks themselves say that we don't give Mudra Yojana. And this I have done research, because see, I have done research extensively in India also and global market. We know that over here the banks are very reluctant to pay to the startups for one simple reason. They say that the startups may not pay back the money. They are very scared about their money getting going into drains, because so they take a very conversation, means they take a conservative note. 50,000 to 2 lakh rupees also no one gives loan. We don't know how the big industrialists may get around 2,000 to 3,000 crores of loans, but definitely the startups definitely don't get this kind of loans. And in fact, they tell that don't also talk. In fact, I was very shocked. Some of the nationalized banks don't also know about the schemes. So the awareness of startup loans, startup schemes itself is missing in the government bodies itself. Means then we come to the private sector. Okay, so this is where we are at this particular moment of time. We hope that the budget will reduce the tax. That is it from my side.
Thank you. Mr. Raghunathan, your final comment. What do you want to see tomorrow when the finance minister presents the budget?
I wish to see her address three main problems faced by the micro small enterprises. The problem is connected with money, problem is connected with materials, the problem is connected with manpower. As far as money is concerned, there are a lot of entrepreneurs who would like to have an exit route. Ease of closing business has. You can't fleece an entrepreneur and make sure he never starts in another industry for his lifetime. An enterprise can die, but not an entrepreneur. So I wish to see her come out with like to continue their existing obsolete business and restart their life. I would like to see her coming out with an option of getting the payments in due place for those micro entrepreneurs. I wish to see a separate ministry for micro entrepreneurs because we are talking about 89% of the industry in India micro entrepreneurs. Now, asking a cyclist to drive in the same lane along with a truck is very dangerous for the cyclist, and that's what we are seeing. And the fourth one is in terms of raw material, opening a fair trade shop, getting the material at right price, giving it at a fixed cost for 1 year. As far as manpower is concerned, fresh graduates should be given a stipend to undergo a 6 months on-the-job training at MSME so that they get the skills what is needed to address both the employability as well as an unemployment problem through that for at least for the next 6 months to keep them occupied. I wish the list is endless, but let her do at least few, which keeps them going. Otherwise, you will see them not doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ram sir, now youth and unemployment is a big issue. MSME is always the backbone of creating jobs. We see whether in terms of loans or in terms of, in terms of revenue, as well as in terms of job creation, MSMEs and startups play a very important role. That is one aspect. The other aspect is India's core sectors. For example, petroleum, steel, metal sectors. They also play a significant role in terms of boosting India's infrastructure growth. And they have to balance domestic as well as international market. How do you see this government is going to balance all these things while our social sectors need a massive amount of fund? On the other hand, India has to balance all these sectors also. How do you see this budget can, make a balance of people's expectation as well as the corporate's expectation?
Yeah, fine. So if I can just allow me one comment on MSME and startups, fully agree with all the other panel members where I think startups and MSMEs need to be supported more. The reason being they are the ones who are creating the jobs. As I keep on saying, let's say, for example, a top corporate increases its capacity, no new jobs will be created, or very few jobs will be created. But MSMEs and startups, if they start, new jobs will be created, which is a core focus area right now. So in terms of whether it's a tax benefit or easy access to funds, I think MSME and startups need to be completely supported. I work with a couple of startups also, so I know the pain they undergo has been highlighted to many of my panelists. So that's a point we'd like to illustrate. Now, coming to the core sector, which I work in. Now, this core sectors, if you look at the sectors of chemicals or petrochemicals, metal, steel, mining and all. Now, as you very rightly said, they are the ones which, one is, of course, they create jobs. That's point number one. And second point is they are very critical to build the capital infrastructure of the country. For example, steel is required. It's very difficult to, if you import steel from outside, you can, but it's not going to give you cost efficient steel by rather than manufacturing out here. So one of the things the government has done, which practically I don't support, is they've been taxing these industries. For example, there was a export duty on steel, which was removed. There is still a cess on oil production in the country. That is point number 2. So therefore, I hope the government really sees that these are the industry that is very core, that is very, very critical to the development of the economy. Because, for example, let me give you an example. Steel production in India went down after May of last year when the export ban was introduced. So therefore, under the garb of controlling inflation, but net is steel production reduced. So therefore, it had a host of other effects on the other industry as a whole. So therefore, one of the key asks which I look for in the government is, let's not look at undue taxations from these particular sectors. Otherwise, it's going to start hitting this industry in a big way. Because let's look at it. India is one of the world's largest steel producing country. India is one of the largest aluminum producing country. In terms of petrochemicals and oil products, we are one of the world's largest. So therefore, this is a sector which cannot be ignored. This is a sector which cannot be fleeced. So therefore, what I would expect from the budget tomorrow is there's no amount of undue taxation that is being put on these particular sectors. These particular sectors, so as to generate some more revenues. That's what I would ask for.
Thank you so much, sir. Professor Chaudhary, now 1% of the population controls 40% of the wealth. That is the recent survey that we got, which is not only just a matter of worry, but also brings a lot of other pictures. For example, if you see now how much this 1% of the people create job, and how much is this 1% create the GST, tax collection. So if we see the GST tax collection and the, recent job creation in the economy, this 1% has very limited contribution. While the other big sector, which Mr. Raghunathan represents, for example, MSMEs, which is like 11 crore MSMEs, and I think a couple of more million startups, create actually massive amount of jobs. This is a dichotomy in one hand. However, always the policy support and policy favor goes to this. Now, this is one picture. The other picture is we started witnessing a complete different model now. Suddenly, in last 3 days, one of India's biggest billionaires becoming third, fourth richest person of the world, and with $36 billion worth of money reduction and loss, he is suddenly out of the top 10 richest persons of this. So this is an amazing, incredible trend that we are going to witness in near future. How do you see that? What is this kind of disruption that we are going to see, and how is government going to manage all this in through the budget and other policy parameters?
Okay, let me begin with a quick response on the Adani thing, because you mentioned that $62 billion was lost in the valuation, not 35 billion, and $20 billion of wealth of Gautam Adani himself was lost. That was the first loss. Now the FBI is fully subscribed, as we know now. 20,000 crores FBI is fully subscribed, bailed out by QIBs and NII of 10 lakhs and above. Largely non-transparent. Nobody knows at the source of all these the QIBs and NIIs who have been putting money. No participation from retail investors. Only 12% of the reserved 50% of this FBI is from the retail investor. Only 12%. Still, the remaining 38% have been taken up by NII and QIBs. So that's up to understand. Small investors below 10 lakhs is only 12%, though reservation was 50%. It is as good as a private placement, not a public offer, because only 12% is the public participation. 88% is from very large investors, and the largest investor being from Gulf, IHC. We know that. And the history of IHC, if you get into, I'm not getting into that much. So in that sense, this FPO has not really succeeded. The money from outside, and it is at least that round tripping is happening. The money from outside has come from Mauritius, Singapore, Dubai, and which has been funding the group already. So that's almost 30%, 6,000 crore, 30% of the FBI has actually come from anchor investors from abroad. This is as good as how black money is converted into white money through government regulated sector. It's as good as he himself fully subscribed through shell companies. Now, this is about one part, the immediate issue. And the long-term implications of it, there has to be a cleanup of the system. This shell company culture and round tripping of money, ill-gotten money has to end. Now that's a bigger issue. Now let me come to your basic question. So this budget 2023-24, let's look at the last year. Last year was 39.45 lakhs original allocation, 4.3 lakhs crores added allocation. That means almost 44 lakh crores was the expenditure of the last financial year, which is the ongoing year, the current one. In my opinion, the next one should go around 50 lakhs crores, from 44 to 50 lakhs. How will we bring the money is another question, but around 50 lakhs crores, if the growth story, amid international challenges, the growth story has to be protected. Now, this 50 lakhs crores has to have these 5 areas of spending. Last year, 7.5 lakhs crores capex was there, capital expenditure. This time it must touch 10 lakhs crores. If there is a huge capital expenditure, then there is a possibility of subsidiary ancillary industries coming up, the startups gaining, the vendors gaining, the small jobs coming up, all those things. This money goes into the purchasing power in the hands of the common people, which gives a boost to the economy. So 10 lakhs crores capex to replace the last year's 7.5 lakhs crores capex. Next, defense, we cannot very much reduce it. It was 8% defense. If we have 8%, it will be of 50 lakhs, around 4 lakhs crores. So I'm continuing with the status quo of defense. We may argue on favor and against of that. I'm continuing with the thing. So interest. Last time the interest was 20% of the expense. So I'm again keeping it as it is. So 50 lakhs crores, 20% is 10 lakhs. So 10 lakhs crores continues as the interest on past debt, because the debt already is quite high. And even this time also there will be debt funding. Then the subsidies and the pensions. Last year, the subsidies and the pensions were 8%. I would like to add startup related subsidies to that, MSME related subsidies to that, and increase the 8% to 10%. And that makes it 10% would be of 50 lakhs. It will be around 5 lakhs crores. That will be the subsidies and the pensions. Now, last time, the education, health and housing, the total expenditure was 2.25 lakhs crores. I'd like to suggest to increase it to minimum 3 lakhs crores, if not more. If it can go more, it's actually good, because education, health and housing are some of the basic things that will support the people at the grassroots. So that's another. State share. Last time the state share was 17%. There has been a huge problem from the states. Many states are complaining about GST money. Their legal share, their rightful share not given in time, and then given in small installments and all those things. So I believe the state share would be nothing less than 20%. It was around 17.5% something last time, nothing less than 20%, which is 10 lakhs. So 10 lakhs here for state share, 10 lakhs for interest, 10 lakhs for capex. So 30 lakhs gone, 5 lakhs for subsidiaries, pensions and startup support. So that's 35 lakhs. And around 3.5 lakhs for education, health and housing. So that's around 40 lakhs and close to 40 lakhs. Still, we have 10 lakhs to go. And there are several areas which have not been covered in what I've said. So apart from now, the income side, the GST last year was 16%. If we get into a proper GST planning, it is on the high. If the business goes better, the GST. I appreciate the ease of leaving the business. That point was already brought. I appreciate that very much. So if GST, seamless GST is there, we would like to see around, instead of GST income being 16%, it can go up to 20% of the income. So 20% of the income of 50 lakhs is 10 lakhs, can come from GST. Debt, at least 20 lakhs crores. Debt was already 36%. So it can be around 40%, so 20 lakhs crores. And products and services of the government, there are several categories of that. Another 10 lakhs crores can come. However, HNI taxation should be there. You already told that how 1% of the population controls how much, Akram? More than, I think,
40%.
yes, 40% of the wealth. So there is a possibility of HNI taxation in an imaginative way, whereas there has to be relief given on income tax. Income tax, taxing people beyond 2.53 lakhs onwards makes no sense in this country, and taxing people 30% for 10 lakhs and above, 30 lakhs and above income is too high. So the income tax relief has to be there. While taxation can come higher at the higher slabs quite a bit, more than a 1 crore and above, there can be higher taxation. But people below 1 crore, and particularly the minimum taxation rate, should go up. 2.53 lakhs onwards taxation for an income of 25,000 a month, giving tax makes no sense in this country. So in the current prices. So income tax relief is compulsory this time. It must be given. And this decrease of interest for pensions or savings of the senior citizens, another sad thing that had happened in the last couple of years. So there must be change in that. Some broad picture I brought in, and the focus has been that we increase expenditure on income, education, health, and housing. We increase expenditure on MSME sector and the support to startups. We increase expenditure on capex. These would, in a big way, boost the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me take a quick comment from now, Mr. Mansoor. Mr. Mansoor, you watching the whole world, working or experiencing from the outside world, how do you see India emerging as a vibrant economy? Because there are a lot of positives also of the country across the globe. How do you see it, and what would be, because you have been witnessing the Canadian economy, American, then Middle Eastern economies. How do you see those economies function, present their budgets, work on their budgets, and how do you put what kind of best practices or suggestions you would like to suggest for India?
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody. It's a very informative session, and it's good to know that there are a lot of variations which we look into that. But from outside perspective or international perspective, see, the thing is, there are only two types. One is, people, as the panelists are saying, either it is a practical budget or populist budget. Whenever we say that, when we distinguish that, once we call populist budget, that means the government does not have the confidence of gaining from its policies. That's why they try to pamper the people, those who want to keep them in the position what they are in. So that itself shows that there is something which has been hidden when they come up with a populist budget. Second thing is, very important thing is, we need to understand, we need to believe that all these economic surveys are biased, which support the people in power or whatever call in administration. So taking it at face value, it's like fooling ourselves. Now coming back to that international perspective. International perspective, the government has been claiming that they are going to march towards 5 trillion economy from since a couple of years before COVID. But the thing is, at the moment, I am not really well versed with the lakh crores and all. I'll use the term billions of dollars. At the moment, the current budget is about $500 billion per year. So if you want to increase the economy from 3 trillion to 5 trillion, the budget also should support that growth. If you want to plan for something, you need to invest on the support system, which can support the economy of a country to move to $5 trillion. But just having a jugglery of numbers can't really prove to be a consistent and resilient economy. Other thing, like when you have the incidents like what happened, the current system shows that there are tons of loopholes in governing and having a resilient approach from the foreign investors. Yes, Mr. Adani might be having a lot of influence and he might be having so many things which is supporting his economic model. Those things are different. But as a country, we need to give a confidence to the foreign investors, because for everything you need money. You can't collect it domestically, then you need to depend on the foreign investors. Foreign investors will only come if there is a confidence of a positive return. So what I would like to say is that expectation from foreign investors' perspective or the international perspective is such that India as a country spend on future development of their own resources. Those resources are education, these resources are well-being of their nation, all the citizens, and the confidence of citizens participating in the economic development. Means not only 3-4 people controlling it, but they are exposing their control to the participation of the local people. So government should think of improving that participation. Means whatever the policy they make, it should reach to the level of the people what they're intending for. If you do not have enough doctors, you can build 1,000 hospitals. Then what you will do with the doctors? You will train the nurses and make them doctors? No, it doesn't work that way. If you want to make India as a, health tourism country, you need to spend the money on an infrastructure. You need to spend the money on the quality education. That's what you improve on your economy. You call it 5 trillion economy for next 10 years or something. Your comparison is not with UK or your comparison is not with USA. Your comparison as a country is with your resources, how much can you develop? So personally speaking, I like to see the confidence of government spending towards the improving the resources itself, where as a foreign investors can come and invest their money with the hope that whatever the money is going in will give a positive return. If that does not happen, then whatever the government claim, whatever the economic survey says and all, it doesn't go well with the foreign investors. Like I heard about that entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, new entrepreneurs, you can consider at least the inflation rate. If you have last year $20 billion, now this year, if the inflation is 10%, at least increase that investment by that inflation rate. You can't cut down all the time just because you don't have money. If government does not have money, that means their system is not working, the collection and the spending, both. So what I would say is that the policy, whatever they are having and the budget supporting those policies should be robust enough to create a confidence among the investors from the international level. If you are having the investment on the entrepreneurship, make sure that entrepreneurs have the confidence of taking a very adventurous route. Like, entering into the market, exiting into the market, and re-entering into the market. You make losses, but those losses give you lessons. If you can't sponsor those lessons, then you create only the failing entrepreneurs. Means if I am an entrepreneur in Indian market, I come, I lose the money, I go out. Then rest of my life, I don't want to touch it. That is a very dangerous situation. And India is exposed to that after Adani expenses. Because I'm surprised that Mr. Adani having a second level of richness, he's not been open to the participation of the local people. As somebody said, only 12% of participation from the local people. That's surprising. The second richest person on the world is not having confidence of his own consumers. How can that work for a country like India? See, in Canada and USA, why USA is very good? Because transparency is there. Everybody, if you say every single rich guy in China or India, he asks them to invest the money. They trust the government that they will not increase the tax for next 10 years. Yes, they mean it. Because there are external bodies outside the administrative system that they guarantee whatever the promises has been made to the investors. We need to have that kind of a transparency. And if whatever it is, Mr. Adani or Mr. Whatever you name it, but they need to have that confidence built within the consumer market, and those consumers should participate in their growth. Otherwise, it won't work. That's what I want to see the government coming up very clear strategies to build the confidence. I'll not put it in a separate way, health, education and all, but the confident building policy measures are very critical for India to improve and become a very, for very good, destination of choice on the international level. That's what my point is.
Very well said. Well, some of the very critical points, in India, it seems to be a crime to become a serial entrepreneur. and it becomes a crime to fail in one entrepreneurship, and you have repercussions in all other enterprises as well of the same organization. Point one. Point two, how can a single business house, which was nowhere 10, 15 years ago in a big way, control or get all all deals of ports, airports, mining, oil, container, infrastructure, one after another, one after another. So it cannot be a perfect competition under any situation. Okay, perfect competition is already in the is always on the economics books, but it cannot be even a reasonably imperfect competition as well. So and personal discussions by business leaders in India, they clearly tell in confidential circles that there is no level of fair play. There is no level of fair play. And very critical point, you come out with a 20,000 crores public offer, and only 12% retailers repose trust on you. 88% are from opaque sources, and you don't know exactly which sources all of them are. So there are real challenges to fair play in this country and economy. And international funding depends on fair play. Having said that, we have already pointed out the bottom of the pyramid needs a huge push if the whole economy has to grow. It cannot be only at the top of the pyramid.
Ram sir.
Yeah, I think a very valid point in terms of confidence building. I'm not getting into the what has happened last 3 days, but confidence building has to be across the entire ecosystem. So let me take a couple of points. Like 10 years back, we had retrospective taxation, which really put off all the FDI into back out of India. And secondly, as I mentioned a few minutes back, there's been some taxation on a few industries, which really puts off all the international investors, even the domestic investors also. Because you don't have a stable regime, a stable tax regime, or a stability of policy, you're not going to get the investments. That's point number 3. Another point which I'd like to say is the legal systems. The legal systems have to really enforce confidence into the complete system. For example, the serial entrepreneurs are not able to approach the legal system, which the big guys are able to do it. So it's not going to induce any kind of investment out here. So therefore, to extend this entire argument of confidence building, I think we need to have a stable policy, and we need to have a transparent, transparent and a stable policy, which is going to really attract all the good investments and then confidence amongst the people in the country. And the examples of USA is there, I can take examples of many European countries also. But because of these policies, that's why they still attract all the investments. So that's a summary of the point which I wanted to make.
Yeah, so time to conclude the whole discussion. Dr. Sharma, if you have any comments, Paras Gupta sir, if you have any comments, then with those we can close today's discussion. Dr. Sharma.
See, we have to just wait and watch for what exactly is the budget for 2023. And as I kept stressing that definitely looking at the present circumstances, I don't think there is going to be much of reduction in tax. That is what, but let us see what exactly they have to say. The other worrying aspect would be that interest rate would increase. And this is going to have definitely more problems than easiness. Only thing maximum, it may help pensioners who have put in FDs. So maybe the FD rates will also increase. But having said that, I don't think it is going to be too conductive because see, finally, any scam, any money which happens, right? If any major institution suffers, obviously the money has to be recovered from somewhere, and that is where then we have been bearing the brunt years on years. So,
thank you, Paras sir. Would you like to comment your final words, and then we close the issue?
Yes, I agree with the things. When the FD interest rates are high, then the system is beaten, because then whole the process goes into the saving instead of the investment in the market, and then it loses its trust vote when the investment is not there in the saving. People are saving the things. So I think this type of factor should be this type of fear should be addressed by the budget. We should be more aggressive, and when we are going up, so we should be more trust factor should be built in the market.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
all.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. With this, we finally come to the close and conclusion part of it. Tomorrow we meet again at 6 p.m. To discuss about the post-budget analysis, what the budget has finally delivered. Today we discussed about what is our expectation from it. Thank you. Keep watching the Policy Times.
Thank you.